A real big world, cause I know I ain't talking about shit. Cause I know what you can do. What up, what up? Just gonna hang out for a little bit, let a few people jump in, and we'll get going. How's your day going though? Doing well? What up, Alfred? Same as yesterday, we'll just hang out, let a few people join in, and we'll get going. I'm glad to hear it, man. Glad to hear you're doing well. What up, Fresh Citrus? Welcome in. You see anything interesting in the news today? Anything that caught your eye? Sefford? Villa? I don't know. How should I say that? Like I said, I'm always bad with names. What up, what up? How you doing, Fresh? Been keeping tabs on AOC lately and seeing what she's had to say about immigration and Biden. That's been what I've been focusing on today. What up, Paul? Welcome in. See a few people starting to trickle in. Welcome, welcome. What up, Drew? What up, No Limit? Probably did the same thing we did yesterday. If people have anything that's on their minds, anything that's interesting to them, I'll just kind of go through comments and discuss from there. If I know, I'll talk about it. If I don't know, I'll let you know I don't know. So, hey, what's up, guys? What's up, young boy? Welcome back. What's up, Pinky? Hey, from Napa, what up? Another Californian. I don't know if I'm happy for you or sad for you. Something I did want to talk about today was immigration, though. That's kind of what I've been reading about this morning, just looking at the news and whatnot. So, as a few more people trickle in, we start talking about that. Because a lot of pushback, I'm just talking about like friends, for example. When I talk politics, there's a lot of focus on Trump lately. But there's a lot of shit that's going to happen post-Trump, obviously. And I think what's happening at the border, that's been a problem for decades now. That was an issue with Trump, it was an issue before Trump. It's an issue post-Trump. So, SoCal, nice. What up, Puerto Rican? You got any open border people in here? This Civil War was about slavery. Yeah, I mean, what would have been about then, right? So if you look at like before this Civil War even started, a lot of the violence out west, like in the Kansas territory and stuff like that, was literally free states and slave states, people trying to settle and get ahead of what was coming. So, yeah. It's just a really ignorant take. Like, so they'll say like, oh, it was fought over states' rights. Okay, states' rights for what? Slavery. So. Yeah, Paul, that's just typical U.S. hypocrisy, right? So, I mean, look at our war on drugs, for example, but then look at all the actions we take from an economic standpoint, a foreign policy standpoint, the impact of drug trade that flows into our country, right? Hey, what up, Roger Federer? That's my favorite tennis player. Respect. I think there's actually an interesting show on all this right now. My buddy's girlfriend, she's got a small role in it on Fox. Snowfall, I think it's called. I don't watch a lot of TV, but it's about that Iran-Contra affair, the drug trade down to Latin America, stuff like that. Hey there, hey man. Appreciate that. Glad you found it too. Welcome in. Thanks, man. Yeah, that's my little boy, little Gracie. He's a cool cat. I was always a dog guy before I got him. He's kind of changed my perspective on that a little bit. Yeah, young boy, 100%. So I'm actually like, I think we gotta get serious about illegal immigration. Not the people trying to get here, but the people who help facilitate like trafficking at the border and things like that. The bad actors down there. But a big part in helping that would be making legal immigration easier, right? Let's make it easier for people to come here because we know that legal immigration is a positive thing. We're all immigrants in one sense, so yeah, exactly. Immigration's a positive thing, 100%. Diversity is a good thing, and we're a country of immigrants. It's what we're all about. What up, Jim Screech? But that's okay. So that's kind of one of the problems on immigration, though. If you look at like the last 30 years, what's Congress really done? All right, it's not a lot, and you really need to legislate this thing because if you make laws that has a longer impact long term, right? The problem is you have presidents coming in since Reagan and Clinton who just slap executive orders on it, right? And then the next administration comes in, they change it up. Then the next administration comes in, they change it up. So like, look at DACA. My criticism with DACA wasn't the actual policy. I think it's a great program, a great idea. We need to actually do more in that regard. My issue was if you do it through an EO, through an executive order, the next president's always going to come along, and if he's a different party, he's going to switch shit up and slap his own EO on it, right? So, Paul, exactly. It's not even people crossing the border. Private prisons, I think, probably get talked about too much in the criminal justice system conversation because they constitute about 11 to 12% of our prisons. But obviously, any kind of for-profit prison thing is a no-go, in my opinion. I am glad that the Biden administration seemed to focus on that, but much bigger issues when it comes to criminal justice. What do you think, hey man? Like I said before, I kind of hesitate to talk too hard on economic shit. I'm not the best when it comes to the economy. I think I know a decent amount, but not enough to really speak on it. We do need some level of minimum wage. Obviously, we've seen wage stagnation, and we know the cost of living's raised a lot in the last 2 decades. But do so many different pockets in this country, different states, different regions. So I'd like to see that kind of more of a state type of thing, but obviously we need some kind of minimum wage, man. No, slaves are not immigrants. They're forced here. Yeah, exactly, Paul. Like, how many foreclosed and empty homes do we have? Oh, there he is, hanging out. How many empty homes do we have, right? More empty homes than homeless. I think it's like a 5-to-1 ratio, too. Fucking crazy. Yeah, man. So, the gas price one's kind of silly to me. Based on my understanding, isn't this like more of a state, local thing, kind of based upon just seasonal things, stuff like that? It's not really about the president. I mean, presidents have an impact on the conversation and the climate and by their tone and their rhetoric, right? And so I know there's maybe not as much confidence in the oil industry with Biden coming in, so it's going to probably impact prices to some degree. But I mean, dude, we put way too much, like as a society, like when it comes to politics and the economy and things like that, like we always think it's the president doing this shit. And yeah, they have an impact, but not as much as people like to think, one way or the other. Let's bash Trump pansies. It'll probably come along at some point. National abortion funding. Don't know enough to speak on that, my man. Maybe expand on that for me. You talking about how we should keep separate the taxes and all that jazz, or we need to fund more or less? Exactly. Thank you. Like, exactly. It's not presidents who do anything with gas. It's OPEC and shit like that. Mike, absolutely, man. I'm more of a whiskey dude, but first round on me if we're ever in the same bar. Oh, opposite coast. What's up? What's up? Welcome, welcome. Is Georgia dead last in healthcare? I didn't know that. taxes should pay for all abortions. Ooh, controversial take. I think that's where you had an issue with the Hyde Amendment, right? So I don't know. What would you like to see done with the Hyde Amendment, in your opinion, then? So I'd be interested in that. Honest economist, yo. If I'm getting shit wrong, let me know. If you know your shit, let me know. Let's see, maybe I missed some of these comments. And if I miss a comment, feel free to spam it back. But yeah, I want to go back to that slave comment. Yeah, slaves are not immigrants, and that's why it blows my mind. One of the biggest pivots when we talk systemic racism is crime, fatherless families, racist shit, right? Culture. What the fuck do we do to their culture? Like, you want to talk about culture? It blows my mind. Like, we strip their history, their language, we strip them from their families, their homeland, like, and you guys want to talk about culture? It blows my fucking mind. That's our culture. We steal shit from people. Hey, what's up, Queen Anna? Doing well. How you doing? Just hanging out before work. Finished up class earlier. Hello from South Carolina. What to do? Yeah, dude, 47, 48. That's pretty bad. 51st. That's funny. I mean, there's talks of adding a couple states, right? So, yeah, dude, fuck Florida. Sorry to anyone from Florida, but the governor there's a real dipshit. Yeah, exactly, man. Like, it blows my mind. You want to talk about fatherless families? Like, are you trying to say that black people are more likely to leave their kids? Like, it's so fucking gross. Like, that's the thing, dude. People don't really think about the extent of their beliefs, right? They say something, they don't really connect what the fuck they're saying to reality. It's like, dude, explore that thought. Really think about what you're saying there. Keystone Pipeline. So I'll get hey man, I'll answer that in a second because I think that's a really important topic today. My thoughts on Keystone, and I could be wrong on this, but if you're trying to make a more efficient like access way, wouldn't that lose jobs like trucking jobs and things like that anyways? So like it seems like they're focusing on temporary jobs, which sucks, but there's being long-term jobs lost. And so someone check me on that if I'm wrong there. I'd be interested to see like some numbers on that. What I do think is if the government's going to violate a contract that we made, we should still honor the wages or something in some sense. Now, kill the project, I'm cool with that because of the environmental impact. We got to shift away from oil anyways. But I do feel bad for the workers who've been left behind. It's not their fault, so I'd like to see us do something to honor that. But that's my take there. How do you like Trump, tough guy? I don't like him at all, bud. Not at all. Are you Jewish, Persian? No, I'm not. Just half Persian. But as for the vaccine, okay, so I actually picked up a third job during the pandemic because my main job is really unstable. I work at a restaurant right now. So I got a job at Safeway, actually, and I was offered the first dose of the vaccine about a month ago. I got my second dose, second dose, not a month ago, about a month and a half ago, and I got my second dose about 2 weeks ago, right? So about a month in between. So yeah, I got the vaccine. At first, I'll be honest, I've always been a pro-vaccine person. As we all should be. But I was hesitant, right? It is a quick process. This is some newer technology, I should say. But I got some friends who are biologists. I have some friends who kind of do work on these types of things. The data is all publicly available. We know that government agencies are looking into this shit. We know that public think tanks are looking into this shit. We know universities are looking into this. We know independent watchdog groups are looking into this, right? All of our manpower and resources are focused on this, right? Media is looking at this from all ends of the spectrum. We have millions of injections at this point, so to me it's something I feel pretty confident in, and I would suggest people follow up with their doctor and make an informed decision for themselves. Yeah, I'm not here for the anti-vax stuff. Has Bill Gates contacted you yet? Not yet, my man. I'm actually writing an article on him right now. I think a lot of their union guys will be fine. Okay, and yeah, so the Keystone thing, I don't know a lot about like the nuance and specifics of it, so if they're gonna get taken care of, then cool. You had no side effects. Nice. I actually got pretty. My immune system reacted pretty harshly on the second dose. I got a little bit of fever and I felt pretty shitty, but that's a good thing. The system's doing what it's supposed to. So Yeah, Drew, 100%. It's all about framing it, right? These aren't criminals or these aren't like the worst of the worst coming here. These are human beings who want a better opportunity, right? Yeah, see? Good, good, good. Glad to see we got some people doing that. Thoughts on white tax? I don't know what that is. Link me or expand on that for me. I appreciate that, Queen. That was kind of you to say. Yeah, right. So corrupt. Free healthcare, and it's not even fucking free healthcare. It's not even like that, dude. It's like we just want to pay a little bit more right now to save more on the back end, right? You spend a little bit, and we talked about this last time. A little bit on preventative care, you know, getting people in for checkups, routine checkups, and shit like that. And maybe we won't have to spend so much for like major ass like surgeries on the back end because they didn't get the help they needed up front. This is such a simple concept. It blows my fucking mind. Ah, shit. If that's the case, I need to get the new Xbox. I've been trying to be better about spending, though. Trying to be better about gaming, too. I spend too much on the Xbox sometimes. Yeah, Paul, huge. That's huge. The way we approach refugees, where we also, like, impede ports of access and shit like that, violates the international... Okay, so basically I think you're hinting at reparations there. I used to be really against reparations until... Hey, take care, Fox. Have a good one. Bet you're a big fan of Coca-Cola, too. I do like my Coke. Where was I at? Reparations, yeah. So I used to be against reparations until about a few years ago. I met a buddy who just really kind of laid it out for me really well. And the reality is we haven't addressed that crime, that wrong, that immorality, because it still has an impact on society today. But even further than that, there's the basic reality is even if society was doing what it's supposed to say, let's say like we had true equality, racism was fixed, the reality is there were people who helped build this country and they reaped none of the rewards. In fact, they were punished, okay? And that's never been righted, all right? So when you look at wealth outcomes, when you look at generational wealth, when you look at who holds the money, the assets, production power in America today, if you don't want to talk about how slavery impacted that, you're not part of the conversation. So to me, reparations are kind of an obvious one. We take care of Japanese internment camps, things like that. I don't know why it's such an issue when it comes to slavery. So yeah, button up, dude. And so someone correct me, I could be wrong on this, but I believe like reparations were talked about in the aftermath of the Civil War, and I'm pretty sure instead of slaves getting freed slaves getting anything, I'm pretty sure it was actually former slave owners who got some level of reparations. Someone check me on that, but I believe that's actually what happened. So fucked up America. What up, Sabs? Yeah, man, I'm gonna be on here when I have downtime until my band's done. I can't post videos because them dumbass Trump snowflakes like to report my shit. So yeah, Molotov, exactly, dude. Like, fucking blows my mind. Yeah, I mean, I've got buddies who like in real estate and stuff. You learn about this shit like early on too, like their little handbooks and stuff they have you read for the classes or whatever. Like you learn about the loaning and housing practices. So yeah, universal healthcare for sure. Because it's about 10% of our population that's not insured, right? And then we know a lot of bankruptcies are medical care costs, so a lot of people are inadequately insured. Ooh, got a history major. Nice, nice. Do you have a specific area of focus or emphasis, Molotov? Because I do love me the history, but only so much time in a day, right? I appreciate that, Danny. Yeah, and that's by the way, I might be saying this wrong. Bew, the fifth column dude, though. People have mentioned him. I checked out some of his stuff. That guy's got a really interesting, good approach. I would suggest people go listen to him. Unlike anyone, you don't have to agree with everything he says, but I think he offers a healthy perspective. Oh, dude, nice. Ancient Greek history, awesome. World ancient U.S. history, cool. Is there any work that you've kind of done or any papers you've put out. I'd be interested to read some of that stuff, man. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Button up. A lot of people are underinsured. A lot of people. Let's see if I missed any comments. Couldn't we solve immigration policy by making it illegal for companies to hire undocumented people? I mean, basic logic, that makes sense, but when I apply it, how does that work in the real world? I don't know. That's something I'd probably want to think about before I just gave an off-the-cuff answer. But I don't like that, because, I mean, I've kind of thought, so being from California, I think one of the issues that no one wants to talk about is maybe there's not a lot of incentive to deal with the immigration issue given the impact illegal immigration has on labor in certain California industries, right? So I think that's kind of one of those things that maybe there's a reason both sides don't want to address the issue in certain areas. But I don't know, man. To me, it seems pretty simple. Make it easier to come here. It helps us. It helps all of us. It's what we're about anyways. And penalize the actual bad actors of the border, not people trying to have a better life. So. Oh, shit. Playing with filters now, huh? Interesting. All right. Hey, bro, your time is... I actually don't get that one. There's a 031. There it is. All right. I was like, I don't know what that one means, bro. Oh, I feel you, man. COVID kind of interrupted school for me last semester, the semester before. Got back here finally. Nice, man. Gonna be a teacher. I respect the hell out of that. Drew. So, okay, I want to touch on that because it's funny, right? Because it's funny to laugh at, and I kind of agree. There's a funny irony to that. But we do have to be realistic about a lot of those feelings and negative emotions that exist there. Whether we agree with them or not, perception's a hell of a thing, right? And there's this perception from a lot of white America that the push for equality is unfair to them, right? Because sharing feels unfair to the oppressor. So whether they're right or wrong, we do have to hear them and understand the complaint and find a way to persuade them off that position, which is tough because it's a purely emotional bullshit position. So I don't know how the fuck you persuade that. Trying to find an answer. Yeah, dude, truth does hurt the Trumpsters. I do like poking at them. Natural troll, I can't help myself there. Yeah, and Paul, and let's look at the distribution of wealth just in the last year, right? So during the pandemic. Also, another one I'm going to keep talking about is Iran. I want to keep talking about Iran because that's popping up in the news again. If you guys check it out, there's a case out of Belgium that just went down. An Iranian diplomat who'd been based out of Vienna since 2014 orchestrated a terrorist plot, a bomb plot that was stopped by various agencies in Europe, as well as U.S. intelligence operations. So he just got 20 years, and it's huge because you can actually trace it back to the regime itself. Usually there's some level of plausible deniability, but they don't have that this time. So how would I debunk the argument that socialism... I'm not going to say that socialism has or hasn't worked. What I will say is that we're a mixed economy. The way to debunk that is just to point to different things we do in our, like Social Security maybe, Medicare. There's arguments that the government, or not the government, pardon me, that the military has socialistic aspects to it, right? So the argument is to point out certain socialistic endeavors that America has already adopted, utilized, and finds very popular. We're a mixed economy to some extent. I'd point to the Nordic model and some of the things they do over there and the successes they've had as a rebuttal to Venezuela and things like that. Dude, fact-checking Trumpers is a fucking full-time job. They live in a different world. Yeah, dude, so CPAC, he's going to be at CPAC. I think it's in Florida, right? And that's the fear, and that's the guess. Is Trump going to outright say he's going to run in 2024 again? Is he going to hint at it? So... check something real quick. Got a text. Alright, let's see. Honest Trader. Persian New Year, early March, my man. Norduz. We jump over fire. We have a nice picnic day. We eat good ass food. Traitor Trump and Republicans. So see, I still want to separate Trumpers and Republicans. I mean, the overlap's fucking crazy at this point. Look at the impeachment case. Look at the public opinion polls from the right when it comes to things like political violence, new Trump party, things like that. So maybe I can't separate Republican and Trump anymore, but we still should try and separate conservatives from that, because there are some good conservatives. Millions of conservatives push back against Trump, right? And the reality is you do need some level of tradition and conservative mindset and some resistance to change, right? You can't just be pure progress, pure openness to change. 100% of anything's too much, right? So yeah, Sabs, it'll be interesting to see what happens in New York, man. I think the New York case has a really chance to toss his ass behind bars. Maybe that's just my wishful thinking, though. Yeah, I'm half Persian. Yeah, my dad's from Iran, so that's why when I talk about Iran, I speak on that shit so passionately. That shit's near and dear to my heart. It's stuff I really work on, and my dad's worked with his whole life, so it's a really emotional topic for me. Danny, so that's a fucking interesting one, dude. I go both ways on that, man. So, on one hand, yeah, conventional wisdom says if you split something apart, divide and conquer, you have less power. My fear is it's not going to actually split them, okay? So the problem is, if you, and I can't remember where I saw this, if you look it up though, there's a lot of articles on it. Basically, if you ask the GOP right now, what would you do if Trump started a new party? About 46% of them said they would join Trump, about 25% said they would stay, and 25% were unsure. So that means 75% of people either would join him or aren't sure on the right, okay? Trumpism is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. I fear that the GOP is just going to die and become whatever Trump wants it to be. I have a hope that a better libertarian party can emerge, but in the real talk though, dude, it's always going to be a two-party system, because the way we vote is a winner-take-all system. So it doesn't matter if like some progressive camp overtakes the DNC and some libertarian camp overtakes like the GOP. You're still going to have two diametrically opposed camps that don't fully represent the spectrum of interests, right? And that's because of the EC, the winner-take-all manner of voting and shit like that. So I used to like an Iranian girl. Dude, you know what? So, as a Middle Eastern man, I'm going to go ahead and comment on that one. Maybe I'll get a pass on this. I think we are a kind of sensitive bunch when it comes to that shit, dude. We are a little, not a huge fan of that. Nice, man. Nice. When did Pink Flute, when did they come over? Or when did he come over? So my dad came here in the 80s. Trump is a genius troll. I just can't help it. Yeah, exactly, Danny. It's designed this way, and both parties know this, right? And so their key interest is maintaining power. Yeah, Trump is the GOP. It's a big problem. You guys might have seen what Mitt Romney said. He thinks that if Trump announces that he'll run in 2024, he's going to run away with the nomination. Okay, yeah, so Pink Flute, the Islamic Revolution went down in 1979. There's a shit ton of build up to that in the 70s. Good time to get out. That would have been when the Shah was still in power. That was the monarch, lower level dictator, I'd call him. Yeah, dude, Persian culture's awesome, man. I mean, all cultures are awesome and interesting, right? But the food's great, the people are great. It's fucking disgusting what the government, not even the government, what the regime's done to the people in the last 40 years. Like, fuck, and what they've done to the culture, what they've done to the history, it's so foul, man. It's so fucking foul. Yeah, dude, exactly, Blasting. Like, no one's gonna run against his ass, dude. So, yeah, appreciate that, Pink Flute, of course. Yeah, so people are bringing this up last time. No one gave me a concrete answer. What the fuck is March 4th? Is that QAnon shit? Because like I said, I'm never going to click on a QAnon story. So I have this thing, like, if it's just outright fucking disinformation, I'm not clicking on that shit. I will never give it a view. I don't give it the time of day. Trump will lose again. There it is, yeah. Yeah, bro. So the Islamic Revolution. Well, the issue is in the 70s. So there's a group called the MEK, the Mujahideen al Khaik, and they're complicated. They've been around since really the 50s. In the 60s, there were Marxist elements. There were so many different elements to them, right? And they attacked the Shah. They attacked the government then. So if you are a Shah supporter, if you're someone who supports the Iranian government at that time, of course that's going to be a terrorist, right? Like, so for example, all these people who call Black Lives Matter terrorists, right? Because they attack their version of America. No, they're not fucking terrorists, dude. Like, first you're conflating rioting and looting with Black Lives Matter. Not the same. But even if they were the same, as we've talked about before, the logic still fucking fails, because there might be some fucking validity to what they're doing given the inherent inequalities in the system and the design of the system, right? And the norms and values of the system. So going back to Iran, you had so many different elements that were rising, giving tension to the country in the 70s. You had the U.S. influence backed by the Shah, right? You had the Marxists. You had the people who wanted a free democratic Iran. You had the people who supported the Ayatollah and that spiritual movement, right? The Islamic fundamentalists. And so what happened is the Ayatollah, before the Islamic Revolution fully happened, he said he was here as a spiritual guide. He eventually hijacked the movement, replaces the movement, declares himself dictator. The U.S. stood by as this happened because the Shah didn't respond to the demonstrations throughout the 70s the way the U.S. wanted him to, not as harshly as he wanted them to. So they stood by as the Ayatollah came in. So that's why, like, whenever, and it doesn't matter Democrat or Republican, they're all in on this shit. Whenever major mainstream outlets, left or right, or major politicians talk about Iran, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, right? The war hawks, they don't know shit. The diplomacy camp, they don't know shit. Yeah, dude, the Western world thinks they know a lot about shit they don't know about. So, and we do this all the time, right? Like, so I know one specific area of the world. I know Iran. We talk about China, Taiwan. We talk about Eastern Bloc, right? We talk about parts of Asia, parts of Africa. Like, we know what the fuck we're talking about because we've seen 3 fucking headlines, right? So, sorry, I just went on a little bit of a rant there. Let me read some of these comments. Bro, I need a haircut and a shave, homie. Just too lazy. What up, Adam? Welcome back, my man. That's so funny. Okay, so yesterday me and Adam had a little sparring session. We kind of disagreed a little bit on the nature of the U.S. and what they want in the Middle East. So props to him for coming back. It's just kind of funny that as he comes back, I'm going on the same fucking topic. He becomes the 19th president on March 4th. 19th? Last... Thank you, Molotov. Last I checked, yeah, the U.S. supported the Shah. And then dropped their support. Let's see what I missed here. Yeah, why 19th president? What am I missing there? Let's go back to the Civil War or something. Something happened back then. Some great conspiracy. Bro, New Zealand's a beautiful country. I wanna travel there. I want to get out to Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, dude, the QAnon shit, it drives me fucking crazy. Alright, so, like, one thing the left isn't great about is this whole big tech conversation. Like, don't get me wrong, like, Trump should have been banned, QAnon should be deplatformed, but there is a slippery slope there, because who occupies the top levels of big tech? The same people who occupy the top, like, the top lobbyists, and there's a lot of influence there in Washington. Let's not ignore that. So it does matter when a group that has so much influence on our politics also has so much influence on how we disseminate information, how we have conversations, the flow of information. Their arguments fail because it's the First Amendment obviously doesn't apply to private companies. Even if you apply the First Amendment to private companies, this is speech that incites violence. It's not protected. Just look at your 1969 case, Brandenburg versus Ohio. But big tech corporate censorship, that is an issue. Like, we do have to talk about that. So there's a paradigm shift in how we have conversations and how we take in information, right? The internet and social media have completely changed that dynamic. And so we gotta reconceptualize free speech in the modern era. I don't know what the answer to that is, but we gotta start the conversation. Does it offend you? Yeah, it offends me. Stop appropriating our culture, bro. No, it doesn't offend me. I don't even fully like to call myself Persian. Like, I'm really American, man. Like, I know a decent amount compared to most Americans about Iran, but I'm not great with the language, right? I understand some, I can speak a little bit, but I don't feel completely comfortable, like, because I don't feel like a true Persian, It's kind of awkward in between thing, so, Yeah, man. Got to have real talk about corporate influence on a lot of different things in America, right? But that's why if you take some of those political tests, a lot of them will ask you, like, is what's best for the corporation what's best for the American, right? It ties that idea to the whole thing, like Wall Street and corporations. If they're booming, we're booming. And it's like, no, trickle down's bullshit. Favorite tacos? Oh, y'all are going to kill me. Del Taco, bro. On one of those, I love cheapy food. I don't love authentic food. I'm a sick fuck. No, yeah. Bukowski, Ballin Bukowski. I love Bukowski, by the way. You're totally right. There's no such thing. But again, like, we all have those internal feelings, right? They don't necessarily represent how things should be. So, yeah, Paul, and that goes back. I think it might have been you actually who brought this up in the last talk. Maybe not, but that's a big issue with media today, right? The chase for profit. It gets in the way of truly informing people and educating. So, and serving as a watchdog. Yeah, fuck yeah, eat the rich. I used to hate that. Now I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe. So after the 18th president and amendment was passed, the president. So they're going back to that shit. Oh god, dude, these fuckers are crazy. One of my good friends was dropping some QAnon shit on me last summer, and I was like, all right, dude. Like, I kind of for a while would debate with him, and it got to the point I was like, dude, if you keep talking this shit, like, love you, but I'm gonna have to cut you for a while because it's just it's just crazy. It's like straitjacket. So that's interesting. Woodrow Wilson talked about New World Order. I don't mean that in the conspiracy sense, just the reality of like what the United Nations eventually became. I can't remember what it was called in the late 1910s after World War One. It was their version of the UN. It ended up being disbanded and it gave rise to the UN after World War Two. But Woodrow Wilson did talk about stuff like that. And dude, there's a lot of... That's an area of history, and Maltov, maybe you can help us out here. That's an area of history I'd like to dive into because, dude, the Fed arose, you've got the booming 20s, right? You've got World War One, you've got a lot of sedition cases that relates to socialistic movements, things like that. You've got labor movements, women gained the right to vote, Jim Crow's still a thing. Dude, so much shit happened in that era, like, so it's too hard for me to... The League of Nations, thank you. There it is. Appreciate that. So, dude, there's so much shit that went down in that era that it's really tough for us 100 years later to like pick out a few things and try and analyze. So I'd like to learn a little more about that era and all the different components before I really made hard claims. But yeah, Woodrow Wilson's attached to some of that for sure. And Ball, and question for you: you got a favorite piece by Bukowski, or a favorite poem, or something he's done? Dude, and I think on the League of Nations and the UN, it's a decent idea, but dude, Mitch McConnell's so fucking two-faced. So fucking two-faced. That, I hate him more than any of them, alright? Trump's a narcissist. He wakes up, he can't help that shit. Ted Cruz and those people, they're just weak as fuck. They're cowards, right? We know how cowards react to a bully. Mitch McConnell, he's smart, he's calculating, he understands the system, he knows exactly what the fuck he did. He sold his soul to get some Supreme Court judges, and he's gonna have to live with that. McConnell ain't no dum-dum. He knows exactly what the fuck he did. Stupid ass little turtle face. Dude, that's so Drew, that's kind of one of my... So if you go back to the first impeachment, you guys might remember, but Tulsi Gabbard didn't vote yes or no, and she took a lot of shit for that. And this is the Ukraine impeachment. And I actually agreed with that vote, all right? So the Ukraine impeachment, it was clear. That was an impeachable offense. The evidence was laid out. The witnesses made it clear. That's not a debatable point, in my opinion. But given how partisan it was, and given just how staunch the opposition was from conservatives, Republicans, and Trumpers, all three of them, and even the independents were somewhat split on that one. They leaned left, but it was still split. I actually approved of that vote because to me it was like, yeah, this is a crime. Not a crime. This is a political crime, we'll call it. Not a crime. A political crime, we'll call it. But is it worthy of the chaos, animosity, division, and anger that might arise if we push this forward? And I wasn't sure. As to your question now, yeah, I don't give a fuck what happens if we lock his ass up now. If they get pissed, fuck them, because they've shown they don't give a fuck about the system. Back then, I still was operating under the mindset that they believe in the system to some extent. They've showed their colors. On January 6th, that was domestic terrorism that at least half the GOP supports, and then they didn't hold Trump accountable for inciting that shit, okay? So at this point, we have to understand that we can't treat that group under a democratic framework, a democratic mindset, because they don't respect that. So using that is just going to allow them to keep pushing us back, all right, and eventually eradicate this shit. So lock his fucking ass up, and if they get pissed off about it, lock their asses up. Honestly, that's the dictator in me. I'll read some of this shit real quick. Yeah, Mitch is conniving as fuck. Evil genius for sure. I mean, so the game theory strategy aspect to me respects the fuck out of Mitch McConnell, right? If we take away the morality of it, if we just analyze it from a power mindset, getting what you want, fucking brilliant. Holy shit. But if you add morality into it, which is a pretty important component, yeah, it gets ugly fast. Yeah, dude, Ukraine was so bad, man. And people talk about that Zelensky phone call as if, like, he wasn't in a really awkward position. What the fuck's he gonna say, dude? He needs the funding. Like, he needs this support. And this is, you know, people, dude, Ukraine's at the front line of our most long-running geopolitical rival and enemy in Russia, right? And so they want to fuck with that? Like, oh my god. The same camp who hates Marxist, communists, Russia, Soviet Union, all that shit, is the same camp who then wants to fucking play games with Ukraine. Blows my mind, dude. God is coming for his people. Yeah, God may be coming for his people, not coming for me. Yeah, dude. And that's because Biden's stuck in that old mindset, right? Especially because he was a big player in the 90s when there was a lot of bipartisan efforts with Clinton and the Republican Congress, right? So was it just the House or was it all of Congress? Yeah, dude. So establishment Democrats today are kind of like old school Republicans, right? So like there's way more similarity between a Romney and a Biden than there is between a Biden, Romney, and a Trump, right? So a lot of the policies, so the problem is when you look at Trump as a leader, his specific policies are what they are, right? We can classify that however we want. It's the problem is this, the social aspect, the rhetoric, the environment, the things he promotes beyond just basic policy. So fucking far right wing, it's crazy, but yeah, dude, mob style boss for sure. Do we have any, like, so I feel like most of the Biden voters, there were some who were actually enthusiastic about the platform and what he was doing. I think most of us were just like, dude, fuck. Not the person we wanted, but way better than Trump, right? So if there's any actual, like, legit Biden supporters, let me know, and I'd be interested to hear, like, what are some of the things that you really liked about him, I guess. Maybe some of the few things. Let's see. How do you think we can start getting money out of politics? Citizens United, that was around 2011. That was a court case. We got to look at that. Look at what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia, and that is a model for what we need to be doing across the country in a lot of these pockets, a lot of these conservative states. So, Kevin McCarthy's from my state. He's a piece of shit, man. He's trying to hedge the two, right? He's trying to keep the GOP alive by bridging the gap between the old school conservatives who don't fuck with Trump and the growing majority who do fuck with Trump. So yeah, dude, yeah, exactly. Why don't you fucking rah on your guy? Because he's a human being who's flawed. Let's see, catch up on some of these. Yeah, Addy, 100%. Stop playing nice. Actually, I have a saying, anything but nice. I don't like that word. Nice is a word that people use when they want to avoid necessary conflict. Oh, I was being nice. I didn't want to really, hurt their feelings. Bro, sometimes you gotta fucking step on some feelings, because sometimes those feelings are bullshit, right? Like, and we know this, we've all been in situations where we have an emotional reaction to something, and we know in our heart of hearts and in our minds that that reaction doesn't actually warrant or match the situation, right? And so sometimes you gotta push that shit out of the way. So fuck these Trumpers and their emotional reactions to shit right now. I'm just lost patience. Yeah, Sabs, which God is coming. And that's one thing, I don't really fuck with organized religion for the most part. I mean, I think there's really good groups who do it the right way, obviously. I'm cool with spirituality. I think we all operate on faith in some sense, right? Even most days I wake up, I'm probably an atheist if I had to commit, right? But I operate on faith in some sense. There's something bigger than me still, right? It's not just me in this world. So I think it's kind of funny. I think atheists can be real dicks to the religious camp, and I think the religious camp can be real dicks to us atheists. So maybe I'm more of an agnostic. I don't know. If I had to really commit, I'd say atheist, though. So, yeah. I know the contradiction there, but whatever. Yeah, dude, there should be an age max for politicians. If you look at the look at how many of these fuckers are millionaires, and look how many of these fuckers are like over the age of 65, um, out of touch with modern society to some degree. And that's actually another thing. If you just okay, so I've talked about this before. Go back to 1968. Tangent here, but a really fucking important tangent. Go back. I think I might get the year wrong. 1968, right? MLK is assassinated by our government. Public opinion at that time in America, 74% of Americans staunchly disagreed with Martin Luther King and his message, okay? Fast forward to today, how old would those people be if you were like 20 at that time? About 70, 75, maybe even 65, right? These same motherfuckers are implementing policy. They're running the show. And we know they didn't fuck with Martin Luther King, alright? So miss me with the whole colorblind shit, right? That's what they wanted us to believe. Sabs, term limits is interesting to me. If you look at how this shit works out in reality, we probably need term limits. But ideally, shouldn't we just vote motherfuckers out? Like, isn't that why we vote? So, but you have to be engaged, right? Yeah, Republicans are definitely... dude, Republicans know how to work the system. That they're good at this shit. Because we know that they have less support. The DNC represents more people, right? But they've lost, what, 7 out of the last 8 popular votes? Like, good God. Yeah, exactly. People won't, Sabs. Which is why, like, in theory, I don't fuck with that. But, like, when you apply it, maybe I have to, right? So... left-wing mania, just because they do, man. Like, it's just... seems like it because it is like it. Because it's just... because every conversation, you're trying to have these conversations at a population level, right? You're talking about people, the range of outcomes, net negatives and net positives, right? But for them, it always comes back to themselves, right? So fascism is collective narcissism in some sense. Like, that's not me saying that. It's been defined like that in some sense. And what is narcissism? Think about that, right? And so when you try and talk politics and talk about other people's issues, of course the narcissist is always going to relate it back to them. What about me? What about us? I'm the victim. It's like, yeah, maybe, but like, there's 330 fucking million of us. Like, so it goes back to it's bigger than us, right? So, expand on that for me. I mean, what is your name? You're hitting some good shit here. Zark and Dag, whatever. I'm terrible with names, bro. I apologize. We'll just call you Zark. Expand on that, Zark. Do you have any ideas or anything that you would focus? Are there any politicians you like who are kind of advocating for some things there that you support? Maybe at the local level even? Yeah, man, the majority of Republicans are pretty fucking corrupt. The DNC's corrupt, though, man. Like, look what they did to Bernie. So, like, the DNC's shit, too. Because something I do is when I'm analyzing America and our politics, there's the empire and there's the nation, right? When it comes to the empire, the DNC and the RNC are pretty much the same, bro. The establishment is the establishment. And they all fuck in the same circles. When it comes to the nation, there's some differences, all right? When it comes to how they both impact us internally, the DNC is not as bad as the GOP. It's still full of shit, but there's levels to shit, right? Dude, that's not even... I don't even know how that's far left, thinking inmates should vote. Like, I don't know if inmates should vote, but once you... because that's tough, right? That's representation without... they're implementing legislation without some level of representation there, right? But for sure, once you've done your time, you need to be able to vote. Like, one of the biggest issues with criminal justice is we punish, but we don't help rehabilitate and bring people back into society. So, like, dude, it's like we set them up to fail again. Like, what's the word? Recidivism? Like, no wonder our rate of recidivism is so high. Maybe I got that word wrong, by the way, but I think it's the word for it. Granny swears, I fuck with Bernie. Like I guys talked about last time, I'm not so much concerned with specific policy when we're talking about leaders at the national level. I'm more concerned about what conversations are they starting, what questions are they asking, what are they pointing to as the issues. Bernie brings up a lot of good points. Do they get wages for their work? 13th Amendment, how about that? Let me check out some of these comments real quick. Or not. I really fuck with AOC. I used to hate AOC. Oh god, she used to piss me off. I fuck with her now. Yep. So this was a little further back, but term limits could address both money and politics and age to an extent. Because the reality is, too, as you age, you're going to accumulate more money. Like, no shit, people who are older typically have more money than people who are younger. Like, duh. But, like, that's a basic reality. But it still shouldn't impact politics the level that it does. Because the whole Citizens United ruling from the early decade was that pretty much money is speech. So, and corporations are people. Corporations are not fucking people. Yeah, good questions, Art. You're hitting the deep philosophy there, my man. We're talking about the basic what does give someone an actual vote in society. But then you get down to cultural norms, right? Laws versus morality, group decision making, and what that should look like at the government level. What is the function of government? What's the role of government? Questions that a lot of people aren't ever going to even get to. Oh, it's philosophical. Everything's philosophical, Zark. Remember, the first mode of inquiry, the first school of thought, the first science was philosophy. All questions stem from philosophical thought, right? When you ask the right question, you create the new field, right? So you're right, philosophy is kind of a mental practice, but then you apply it, right? So, but I see your point there. I'd agree with that to an extent. Public funded elections, yep, good point. Thank you, Cookie, 100%. Appreciate the consistency there. Interesting, Granny. Maybe expand on that, or if you got a link or a good article on that, hit me up on the DM so I can check out what she did there, because I don't know a lot about what she's done specifically. I've heard a lot of people talk about that. Michelle Obama did a good job focusing on education in some ways. I just don't know a lot about that specifically myself. So, yeah, 100%, Zark. Totally. Which gets back to, remember, so that goes back to the whole Jim Crow, slavery, the Constitution, the different amendments, the different writings and thoughts of the founders, and then subsequent thinkers through the time. So, let's see, catch up on some of these comments. Yeah, Fresh. Liz Cheney is one of the good ones, which given who her dad is, it feels, is she, but God, because Dick Cheney is not a good person. That dude has so much blood on his hands, it's fucking crazy. That's how crazy Trump is, dude. Trump's so bad, he's got me thinking Dick Cheney's decent. I know we're talking about Liz Cheney, right? Not Dick, but it's hard to separate that. It's hard to separate any Republican from the establishment group that was behind the war on terror and stuff like that, so. Need more like you, Cookie. Democrats need a Trump version, but smarter. That's what Bernie was supposed to be, okay? Because Trump. So someone brought this up. A buddy brought this up. One of my smarter conservative friends who really does a good job pushing back on my ass. Even when I disagree with him, he brings up good points. Whether we agree with it or not, Trump was seen as a populist movement, all right? A movement for the people, right? People who support him think he's up there swinging for him. He's their bully up there, right? Fighting their cause. Bernie Sanders was a real populist, and look at what the DNC did to him. Look at what the establishment did to him. So you got your real Donald Trump. The system wasn't ready for him. Look at how we treat Jimmy Carter. Look at how Jimmy Carter gets treated, right? By historians and by political scientists and things like that. Not a lot of love for his actions, right? A lot of love for his heart, but not a lot of love for him as a president. Terrible fucking marketer, Paul. Terrible. Dude, Bernie is such a bad marketer. If he just would let someone else slogan his shit. Why did he accept the socialist label for so long? I'll never understand. Yeah, Bernie's pretty fucking genuine. He's authentic, for better or worse. Good point, Granny. Yeah, man, U.S. is the terror. So, I rail against Iran and the regime because they're the biggest state sponsor of terror, but the argument is, what about the U.S., right? That's a fair what about. I hate whatabouts, but sometimes a whatabout's valid. Well, and Paul, so that's what people don't understand, man. Socialism and communism are supposed to be post-capitalistic movements, right? So a big issue with communist movements that we've seen, and this is based on my understanding, someone can check me on this. A big issue with communist movements that we've seen in history is they were trying to implement them before the means of production were really established, before the society was at a level that Marx had kind of commented on that would allow for the transition, the class consciousness into a more socialistic or communistic state, right? So, and like that's really general, right? When you start to dive into it, it gets way more complex and nuanced than this, but so like I'm open to saying socialism can't work if the conditions aren't appropriate for it, but nothing's going to work if it doesn't have the appropriate conditions, whereas almost anything can work if it has the appropriate conditions, right? It's just about matching the system to the conditions to the people, right? And all that shit. So yeah, dude, Dems could do a way better job marketing. Republicans are way better at that shit. Change started 15. That's awesome. So, Cookie, what are your thoughts on Andrew Yang then? Because I think his UBI stance aged really well this last year. Our past is our present. To some extent, for sure. I think Zark, our debate wouldn't be that that's not true. I agree with that. Our debate would probably be to what extent, right? If there even is a debate, we might agree. What up, Matty Ice? So I can't name a communist country that doesn't do that. I would argue that the Nordic countries have a level of socialism. Because, dude, socialism, capitalism, it's a bit of a spectrum, right? It's not just like we talk about these concepts independently, but then you got to apply it back to life and how like shit's actually done. So when it comes to socialism, there's models in countries that have a more socialistic framework than us, and you look at the economic index, the freedom index that are done by some organizations out there, the Nordic countries rate out above us on a lot of these things. So there's a bit of a myth when it comes to what socialism is trying to do. But yeah, I'm not going to defend the communism we've seen in the world. I just would argue that it's not real communism, but that kind of gets boring too. It was real communism, just not implemented correctly, but that's a bold claim to make too. Who am I to say it wasn't implemented correctly? I'll catch up on him. I think I missed a few comments. Yeah, Trump was a Democrat for a long time. But what Trump was as a Democrat. Yeah, dude, someone mentioned above, moderate Dems are old school Republicans. Charlie Bronson, like, are our freedoms not being taken away in this capitalistic, democratic society right now, to some extent? Your freedoms are always going to be infringed on if you're not engaged. I'm less concerned about the system, and I'm way more concerned about education and the engagement of citizens, right? And like the environment that we're kind of creating for each other. Like, I truly believe for the most part that any decent system, any decent idea, any decent policy or framework will work if enough people buy in and enough people are kind of acting for the betterment of each other and said system. So I think we make this shit way too fucking complicated sometimes. Hey, I appreciate that, Pink Flute. Have a good one. Yeah, I'll probably be getting off here pretty soon myself. Gotta get back to the real world. Society by definition is socialism. RNC is. Yeah, like, because think about what are we trying to do? So like when we all hang out, like you're hanging out with your friends, you're trying to make a decision. That's group decision making. That's what government's supposed to represent, right? All of us Americans together, group decision making and working together and shit like that. And socialism, in some sense, is just trying to bring the decision-making power back to the people. Like, why is that such a fucking bad thing? Yeah, if we want to talk about how it's gone wrong, we can have that conversation, we can analyze why that is. But when you look at the actual ideas behind it, it blows my mind why it scares people so much. Maybe it's because they're dum-dums, so they know, oh shit, maybe people shouldn't have more say in shit, projecting their bullshit on others. I don't know. And yeah, Zark, I appreciate your commentary, man. Even the little few areas where we might have had a little disagreement, you bring up really good points. I don't even know that we necessarily disagreed. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, there's little degrees of difference, maybe. Yeah, dude, I would have voted for anyone but a fascist. Like, I would have voted for shit stain, honestly. So, can do less harm. Someone said not all cops. Ooh, we're gonna talk about cops? Alright, so talk about, yeah, so sloganing, right? All cops are bad. That is a fucking stupid slogan, alright? I kind of agree with it for the most part. Like, I got friends who are cops, family who are cops. There's good cops, obviously, right? I don't think most of these people are walking around trying to be bad people. But the reality is, if some cop pops off and does some bullshit and nobody fucking does anything about it, well, they're all bad cops, okay? Because if you're not holding someone accountable, you're complicit, alright? So, but the all cops are bad thing, it just entrenches conservatives and the all lives matter and all those dipshits. It entrenches them so hard because it's such an antagonistic and extreme statement, whether it's true or not, that someone who's not doesn't agree with that is inherently going to drop into a really intense defensive position. So I don't get. It seems like ego stroking to me. It seems like the left trying to play. It's a fuck the police, right? Our version of it, but whatever, man. If it makes you guys feel better. Yeah, a cop is as good as the worst cop. That's fair. All cops are complicit. Like, exactly. There's just better ways to slogan this shit, in my opinion. I brought it up a little bit yesterday. I think it was out of LA, though. There's another police shooting. I just went down, check it out. Most cops are good. I disagree, though. I think if you take part in a profession, a field, and a group, and an organization that harms certain communities, really all communities, but certain communities to a greater extent the way that it does, you know how it is, and you're not doing anything to push back against that, you're not good, alright? I don't know, like, we throw around the word, like, good too easily, man. Like, if you're not actively pushing back against something, you're not a force for good. Maybe you're not an outright force for bad, but you're not helping shit, that's for sure, and you're making it easier on the bad, I promise you that. So, is that good? I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's certainly not good. Like, certainly. Yeah, for jaywalking, exactly. A $250 fucking fine. Alright, and that's a controlled situation. The one cop, you can listen to the audio too, not out of context. They're both talking about it. The one cop's a little fucking gunslinger. He wants his little moment. He wants to go push someone's fucking buttons because he sees a black man he can go create some shit with, right? The other cop says, hey man, this is a controlled situation. We don't have to do this. Don't create case law. A few minutes later, the guy's fucking dead, alright? And if that happens to me, if I'm jaywalking, I don't get stopped. I promise you that. I don't know what that's in context to. My day is good for something that's funny as fuck. Oh my gosh, you are so blind. I mean, about a lot of things. Probably not about this, though. Yeah, exactly. It takes training and ethical structures. We need to actually educate our cops. It shouldn't be... You should have to have some kind of... You gotta go... You have some level of schooling. Can't be some 6-month little bullshit training process where you guys just frat off together. Dude, my ex had to train and go for more schooling to be a hairstylist than fucking cops do. Like, how? And maybe teachers should be, because, like, dude, you're impacting young minds is super serious shit, right? Like, you're impacting young minds and you're placing seeds that are going to form the foundation of thought for them going forward, right? So that's super important shit. But so is policing, man. So is maintaining the peace. So... Dude, you are so... Okay, how so? Explain it, don't say it. It's ridiculous, sensitive training is... Yeah, some level... Yeah. Giving... sensitive training would give some level of empathy, right? Taking you outside your own shoes and seeing... Remember, these are people, not like criminals, like... People you're supposed to protect. Maybe from themselves, even. Yeah, Danny Gonzalez, so, someone help me out here. What was the case? But, liability on cops. We gotta talk about that, man. Last 20 years, they've been getting off crazy since that court case. And that's what people don't want to talk about. It's not that, look, we know that there's going to be mistakes. Shit's going to happen out there, all right? I think as a society, we could accept really bad outcomes and human errors if the system was trying to correct for these things and was really trying to go at the bad actors, right? The problem is we know the system is really trying to hide these things, right? They don't accumulate data, they don't share data, they don't want body cams, they don't want unions are kind of there to protect. It's it's just so fucking corrupt on one extent. So who am I gonna call any help? Myself, homie. Like, I'm not gonna call anyone because by the time it went down, they're gonna get here 10 minutes late. I don't call the cops. I deal with it myself. It's not hard to pass a low-level psych exam, dude. Like, and hear me out, my man. Like, I remember what started this whole conversation is the idea that all cops are bad is stupid sloganeering, and I'm willing to concede that not all cops are bad, but it's just not all cops are good, right? And most cops aren't good. You can't be good if you're not pushing against the bad you see around you, right? And I think that's a pretty fair claim. Let me check some of these comments real quick. Red, I think cops are psych tested. I don't know how effective it is. Yeah, exactly, Granny Squares. Experience, perspective, it provides a level of empathy and allows you to kind of operate with different people better. Yeah, hey, Zark, I missed that. Talk. Great point. Change public school funding away from property values. Huge, huge, huge point when it comes to systemic racism, education, and outcomes and the knowledge gap hypothesis and things like that. All right, Northwest Rocks, question for you. Like, I'm really going to ask you a question here. I'd appreciate a response because you've had a lot to say, so I'm sure you can answer this question then with a comment. If you have 100 police officers and they're all standing around and 2 police officers violate a man's constitutional rights and assault him, violating the law as well, and 98 cops don't do anything about it, how many good cops are there? Because you're saying most of those cops are good. I'm going to argue that at minimum, none of them are good, and possibly all of them are bad. And what I'm saying is there's a range there from good to bad, and if you look at the middle, kind of neutral, all of them are at least neutral. None of them are good, is what I'm arguing in that scenario. Police unions are way powerful. So something to look at when we look at the criminal justice and police brutality issue is police unions, the contracts for specific departments, how militarized are they, things like that. Because there's a lot of police departments that actually do a really good job with their local communities. There's a lot of police departments that do an awful fucking job with their local communities. Yeah, so Zark, and that kind of goes back to I think our previous little back and forth on is the past and present, right? Because most people have good intentions. The problem is good intentions don't mean shit a lot of the time, right? When you look at the actual impact of our actions. So, I appreciate that, Northwest. I appreciate that concession there. So that's a fair response. So then maybe if you could point out something specific you think I'm saying that's unfair, because like I get you disagree with me, but you're not really giving me anything concrete to work off of. So what is it that I'm saying specifically that seems to be the issue? Adam, I'd love to know what I say in the training small cop. Yeah, so that's what's interesting, right? Because we know it's not uniform, like precinct to precinct, state to state, locale to locale. So, which is one of the biggest issues in our country today is we don't track statistics, data, and information very well, and that's by design. A lot of our legislation is written on purpose by the elites so that we don't track the relevant information, so we can't make decisions because we don't have adequate information. Like, it's by design. So, yeah, and dude, police brutality impacts all of us, like all people in America. It just impacts certain demographics more. Okay, yeah, so 100%, like I believe that. Like I said, and so I think what would be fair then is when I make the distinction between different precincts, things like that, dude, I know there's a lot of good cops out there. I have friends who are cops, stuff like that. I have ex-friends who weren't good cops. I have friends today who are good cops. But that's why it's on the good cops to really, really stand up to this shit, right? Like, because the bad cops are giving them all a bad name. check some of the comments here. I got a few more minutes till I gotta take off here. Long ingrained traditions, 100%. And one of the good models to look at, by the way, was out in New Jersey. What city was it in New Jersey? Back around like 2011, 2012, they restructured how they're doing policing. They restructured their contracts, all that jazz. And it's really changed a lot of the crime rates and stuff like that. So, no, police should not be police themselves. Yeah, let me give an example, man. So I have a buddy, for the longest time, he's a conservative, he was a Republican, but even in 2016, he did not fuck with Trump, like, at all. He voted third party. Up until about 5 months ago, was always anti-Trump, became a cop, and you'd be amazed at how quick the rhetoric from him changed. And I hung out with him, and hung out with his buddies. Dude, I'm not. This isn't bullshit. Just outright racism, dude. Calling people monkeys, dropping the N-word. Like there's a certain mentality, and it's this hyper macho, chauvinistic. And dude, there's a really ugly current in a lot of police departments, and I saw it happen to my buddy, man. Like I saw the tone and change in him in just a few months of hanging around these people. So it's like, and now this is not all cops, but it's too many cops. I think would be a fair point. So. It's like, I mean, how do you go from knowing the bullshit that Trump is to just outright being a racist and voting for him? Like, and it shows you how much people are a product of their environments and what they surround themselves with. Adam, yeah, dude, I saw your previous comment where you said, you have friends who are good and bad cops. I'm pretty sure you've heard the good and bad of it all, man. And it's ugly shit. Yeah, North, it goes both ways. And so let me give an example to that point right there, Colby, because look at the Republicans right now. Look at what happened to Liz Cheney and some of them who stepped out of line and spoke back against Trump, impeachment, things like that. They tried to censor them, right? And so this is a basic reality. It's not easy to step up and speak out against your tribe or your people because it sounds disloyal, right? People don't like that shit. Tube Talks, yeah. Hey, Tub Talks, yeah, 100%, man. So, and that's a big issue, though, right? So maybe police are being asked to respond to situations they shouldn't be asked to respond to begin with because we don't have adequate social safety nets and support systems and things like that, right? Both are racist. Northwest. Biden has said racist shit. He's implemented policies that have really impacted people of color, and Trump has said racist shit, and he promotes an environment that really impacts people of color. I would just argue that Trump's is worse. It's not one or the other. Yeah, RTO. I admire the Republicans that stood up. I actually voted for Romney in 2012. It's one of the few conservative takes or things that I did that's aged fairly well. Actually, if I could go back and vote again, I think I still would vote for Romney. That's interesting. I have to think about that. Romney, Obama. Because I really fuck with Romney, dude. Like, I don't agree with his policies. I know I don't agree with his, like, religious views, obviously. But if you look at his track record when he was in Massachusetts, he's shown a consistent ability to work with the other side. He implemented his own version of Obamacare in Massachusetts before the ACA was a thing. So, I fuck with Romney, actually. I like that dude. Northwest, you disagree? I mean... How is Trump not a racist? All right, like, I'm gonna need you to help me out with that one. So, like, when you got Black Lives Matter protests going on, for example, and then Trump's repeating rhetoric and taglines from racist ass cops from the 50s and the rhetoric they used in regards to the civil rights movement, how is that not racist? Like, how is it not a clear dog whistle to white supremacy, white nationalists, and racists? Like that. I think a big issue for a lot of people in this country is unless someone's dropping the N-word, unless someone's saying like overtly, clearly racist things, they don't connect racism to the words and what's being conveyed. And it's like, I don't know why it needs to be so goddamn obvious for people. Yeah, that's exactly. Telling the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. Stand by for what? What the fuck are you standing by for? Have I been told to be less... Yeah. Yeah, exactly. People can pop off in the comments and give so many fucking examples of the bullshit when we enter this conversation, right? So, police training, yeah, police training, definitely a problem. Yeah, regurgitating old racist talking points, exactly. It's the same old shit. Around the 1970s, they learned you had to be quiet about it, so they just went underground with it and they got smarter with it. Instead of outright open policies that were racist, it was things like voter ID laws and shit like that. They just got smarter with it. Redlining, stuff like that. Trump did more. See, Northwest, here's the problem we're going to encounter. You're starting to just repeat like really common talking points. Now, if you want to explore that idea and give some data, maybe hit me with a link. But let's think about where we stand as a country today. In the last 4 years, I'm pretty sure the black community didn't gain more rights than they had during let's just think about the history of the U.S. Right? Think about slavery. Think about the Civil War. Think about Reconstruction. Think about Jim Crow. Think about the Civil Rights Movement. Think about the colorblind era. Think about the Black Lives Matter era, and think about the response from Trump to all this. Also consider Trump was one of the biggest amplifiers of the birther movement and inherently racist belief about Obama. Like, let's think about all these things, and you want to talk about unemployment, which is just him piggybacking off of what Obama's economy did in the aftermath of the '08 recession. So, what? And Sabs, yeah, we should not give Biden a pass on his racism, 100%. Like, I agree with that, but we're not gonna both sides of this shit. Yeah, fresh, exactly. And so, still blasting. You just hit up a good point, right? And so, Biden's a product of a different era. He says some racist shit. The intent's not. That doesn't make it any better necessarily, right? And so that's why it's really important to ask what is the intent? What environment is he trying to create? Like, and I know that sounds kind of hypocritical, right? Oh, why can we apply intent to Biden and not Trump? But it's looking at the totality of their actions, right? So Biden implemented the crime bill in '94, but what's his take today, right? That matters way more to me than what he did in the past. Now, if he's still promoting some of these things, if his administration doesn't take a more progressive approach with criminal justice, then you know what? I'm going to start talking about '94 a lot more and a lot more and a lot more because it's going to become way more relevant. Because it goes back to the whole our past is our present, right? Because if you're not going to address your past mistakes, well then it's lip service, right? And that's bullshit too. So we have to hold the Biden administration accountable for their bullshit. We have to be realistic about what the Biden administration's doing and what their rhetoric means juxtaposed to Trump's rhetoric. So yeah, Tub Talks. Civil War just made white people have to share space with people of color. They haven't learned how to share in decision making yet. That's why you get a Trump after Obama. It's king fucking tantrum. Opportunity zones. Okay, fair point. That's an interesting one. But again, so Northwest. Imagine. Let's say it this way: if we're having a conversation and I'm saying, you know what, I really want to do this for you, I want to do this for you, I want to do this for you, but I'm holding a gun to your head as I'm commenting about these positive things I want to do for you, which message are you going to take? Are you going to take the task positions and the verbal message, or are you going to take the overwhelming nonverbal cue that I mean you harm, right? So Trump can outline and say these positive things, but the reality is the rhetoric that he uses, as people have already pointed out plenty of examples, signals that he doesn't want these people in his version of white America. All right? And that's why his supporters love him so much. Because he says the shit that they were afraid to say. Right? That's why they love him. Oh, he's saying what's on my mind. Yeah, well, for 40 years, you knew better than to say that shit. Now we've normalized it. Yeah, Biden is going back on some promises. But I would ask how much of that is the reality of just running into the system versus him walking it back. So, for example, the moratorium on, what's the word here? Immigration, deporting people. They try to implement that moratorium on deportations, right? And then a Trump judge blocked it. So, like, that's not Biden's fault, right? Now, the housing, right, and utilizing overflow housing facilities and the conditions there, yeah, that's on Biden, right? But that goes back to both sides. Trump made it worse with his criminal violation, Chad Wolf's policy there, but Democrats and Republicans both have their hands on the mess at the border. Ooh, hot take, young boy. Expand on that. I'd be interested to hear your take on that. Yeah, Big Mikey, that's kind of where I stand, man. Seth the Jew, evictions. Are you saying, are we talking about Biden walking back on that to some extent? So I see I've got more comments. Let me try and read the context for this. I'm just going to apologize for how that racist. Really, South and Civil War. The time has passed bipartisan support as well from the Black Caucus. Yeah. So when you look back, and I'm not. This isn't my era, right? I was born in the early '90s, but when you look back, there were legitimate issues in the '80s and '90s when it came to like crime and shit like that, drugs and shit like that. It's just the problem is our efforts to fix it completely fucked one population. So I'm not going to attribute like intent behind that. I don't know why it went down like that. All I know is it happened like this. We've seen the outcomes. We've seen the impact, and we got to fix it. So to me, we get lost in the sauce too often. Hey, thanks, Miles. Appreciate that. Oh, perfect. Can I copy and paste out of this? I can't. Hey, Zark, hit me up in the DMs with that link, bro. I'll respond to you when I have a chance. How much money did Trump make? I don't know how much money Trump made while he was president. That'd be interesting to see. That's one of the things I really hate. Oh, he donated his salary. What the fuck does that mean? Dude's a supposed billionaire. Donating his fucking salary would be like someone with $100,000 giving like $15. Like, check down the math, but it's about the same scaling, man. Like, doesn't mean shit. Like, God. Add $7.1 trillion to our debt, but gave up his salary. Fucking hell, dude. This is the level of thought we're dealing with. Thanks, Bug Kicker. Appreciate it. Lily, it's incredibly childish. It's the whole classic, we didn't learn two wrongs make a right thing. Like, let's say the what about is right, and Biden is the same as Trump. Okay, like, we all fucking suck. Like, everyone's trashy. Cool, let's move forward and fucking fix it. And if they're wrong, well, they're just hypocritical assholes. So, it's childish as fuck. Yeah, Savs, exactly. And still blasting. That shit's gonna kill me. We all remember Fox News and Obama's golfing, right? School choice is an interesting one. I don't know a ton about the school choice debate. Smarter people than I seem to be against some of the school choice movements, so it makes me kind of pause and hesitate to give a really strong opinion. It's something I'd probably prefer to read up a little bit more on. So, someone want to expand on that. Maybe someone knows more about that shit than I do. But I think it goes back to someone brought up the point about property values and how we need to actually fund schools. And here's my issue with school choice, actually. I do have an issue with school choice now that I think about it. I made a video on this too. In Utah, and I think it got kiboshed, but there's a school that tried to make it so that parents could opt out of learning Black History Month. So fuck school choice to some extent, dude, because here's the problem with that. It's not going to be utilized appropriately by certain people, and that's the problem with everything, right? It's like, how do we balance individual rights and liberty with the harm that can be done when people utilize that shit, right? So it's like, and that's the issue with the pandemic right now. You have a clash of two great tensions, liberty and life. These things are clashing, and you're seeing two kind of camps emerge, right? So, Seth the Jew? Okay, thank you. So school choice has been proven to adversely affect poor communities. I haven't seen the literature or research on that. If someone wants to link me that shit, I'd appreciate it so I can follow up on that myself. But smarter people than me have kind of implied that, and I'm inclined to take them at their word. But like I said, I haven't looked into that myself, so I don't want to make a strong claim there. Yeah, exactly. So Seth, exactly. So it's all about range of possibilities. What people don't realize is there's certain pockets, and this goes for poor communities, they're white or black, doesn't matter, Hispanic. You have a smaller range of outcomes, right? There's more negative things that can happen to you, and there's less positive things that can happen to you, and eventually the odds are worse. It's just, it's at the population level. Now, at the individual level,
it doesn't mean shit, right? We're all different people. We're all unique. We have different traits, skill sets, different environments, different people around us. So people really mix this conversation up. There's the individual conversation, and there's talking about these things at the population and conceptual level. I cringe when conservatives say school brainwash kids with left-wing shit. Yeah, man, I'm about to finish up university. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of, hey, what's up? Hello from Utah. Don't get me wrong, there's a, university campuses are very left-wing, okay? And I don't mean that in like they're trying to promote left-wing ideology. It's just the reality of who's there, who's in the administrative positions, who's teaching a lot of these courses, right? That being said, when I started school, I was pretty damn conservative, and if you've gotten my vibe, I don't hesitate to speak up. And I was never like punished for it. One teacher actually gave me some shit, but you're always gonna run into like one asshole teacher, right? It doesn't matter what your views are on that. My views actually have shifted a lot more at the end of school, and not even because of school, just because of my own work in media and getting access to better sources and things like that. But yeah, it's kind of a silly talking point, man. Trump committed $200 billion to an era of new prosperity for black communities. He committed $250 billion. All right, let me follow up and look. Let me write that down real quick. I have a little thing I keep notes on. And actually, I should get going anyways. My battery's about to die, and I'm way past time. So, on that note, I'll answer this last question. I do like Noam Chomsky. He's a little farther left than me, a lot maybe. But his commentary and insight is brilliant. His shit on linguistics is awesome. He had a really, really amazing piece on free trade around 1991 that completely, God, did it age well. Like, holy shit, that guy knows what he's talking about. So, well, I mean, dude, because at schools there's a lot of critical theory and shit like that, and that's going to seem like it's left-leaning, right? So, but yeah, anyways, probably a good point to hop off. So appreciate you guys all stopping in. Everyone have a good one. Probably will do this again tomorrow, same time, if you guys want to hop in. So I always have a window between work and school. So thanks, guys. Everyone take care.